Hi, today I'm going to show you how to solve a before-change-after word problem involving percentage. There were 35 pupils in the bus. 40% of them were boys. When some boys alighted the bus, the percentage of boys dropped to 30%. So how many boys alighted the bus? To start off, let's identify where are the before-change-after information from the question. Now 35 pupils in the bus is the starting point, so this will be our before. 40% of them were boys. This will form part of the before information. When some boys alighted the bus, this will be the change, but we do not know how many, and which is exactly what the question wants us to find out. The percentage of boys dropped to 30%. This will be the results or the after effect when some boys alighted the bus. So let's start to put the information into the before change after table. Now 35 pupils in the bus at first, so we can annotate 35 under the total column. Now we do know that 40% at the beginning are boys, so 40%. Now if 40% are boys, means the remaining 60% must be the girls. And the total will bring us to 100%. How many boys alighted the bus? We do not know. So we are going to put a question mark under the boys change column. Now looking at the after row, the percentage of boys dropped to 30%. So 30% in the after row for boys, which means that in terms of proportion, the remaining percentage for girls will make up 70%. And the total will have to similarly add up to 100%. Now for ease of working, we are going to now change the percentage into units so that it's easier for us to work with. So 40% for boys will be 4U. 64% for girls will be 6U. And of course 100% represented by 10U. Similarly for the after row, 30% for boys will now become 3U. 70% for girls, 7U, and of course adding up to 10U again. Now the interesting part will be for us to be able to identify that actually the change only involved the number of boys. No girls alighted the bus. So therefore, we have to make the before and after information in the girls column the same. So how do we do that? By looking at 6 units and 7 units for the before and after column for the girls, we can find the lowest common multiple involving 6 units and 7 units, which will bring us to 42. So by doing that, we can actually multiply the before girls 6 units by 7 and the after girls 7 units by 6 to make them the same. Now looking at each row across, in order to maintain the same proportion of the percentage, we have to ensure that the percentage or the units that we're looking at are equivalent across the boys and the girls. So since we have multiplied 6 units by 7 for the before girls, we have to do the same for the 4 units before boys. And of course the total times 7 in the before row as well. Now for the after row, since we have multiplied the 7 units by 6 for girls, in order to maintain the proportion or the percentage again, we have to do the same across the after row. That means 3 units after for boys, we have to multiply by 6. And also lastly, in the total after column, multiply by 6 as well to maintain the percentage proportion. So what does this give us in the end? Now 4u times 7 for the before boys, we end up having 28u. For girls, 6 times 7 bring us to 42u. And for the total in the before column will be 70u. Now let's look at the after row. 3u for the boys times 6 give us 18u. 7u for the girls times 6 give us 42u. And of course, the final 10 units after brings us to 60u. So as we can see now, we have already equated the units for the number of girls because none of them alighted the bus, so their units should remain the same. So what is the change over here will actually be the units change for the boys. 28 units before to 10 units after. To 18 units after. So the change in this case is 28u minus 18u, which is 10 units. That means 10 units will be the change for the boys. So how do we solve for 1 unit? The only information in terms of whole number that we see in the question is the 35 pupils. So let's take a look at 35 pupils. How many units does 35 pupils represent? Now we do know that from the 70 units here at the total column, this 70 units represents the 35 pupils. So 70u is the 35 pupils, which means 1u, when we solve for it, 35 divided by 70, this will give us a number 0.5. That means 1 unit equals to 0.5. So what are we going to find? The question wants us to solve how many boys alighted the bus. So since we already know that the change is 10 units, we can now use the change, which is the number of boys who alighted, which is the 10 units here, multiplied by the 0.5 per unit. This will give us an answer 5. Therefore, 5 boys alighted the bus.